What's going on, everybody? It's Runick coming at you with a brand new video, and today I'm excited to bring to y'all my live twin Runick Spright deck profile for the November 2024 format. And it's a little bit of a different sort of like template this time because we're actually doing this live with chat. It's not something that I normally do when it comes to deck profiles, but I saw a lot from like Joshua Schmidt and stuff like that, and I thought it'd be like a really fun way to like interact with the audience. And I've been having a lot of fun with this deck in particular lately. I've had almost an undefeated record entirely. Out of all my matches, I've lost one. Most of it was just because, A, the Fiendsmith engine's just like super cracked, and also I had no idea what to really hit other than the Fiendsmith engine in my opponent's deck. I have no clue what 99% of Memento cards do. And then I think game 2, I ended up getting drolled or I bricked, or it was one of the two things. It was either I got drolled or I bricked. It was like basically unwinnable, and we just like rambled while he full comboed me and OTK'd me. But it was pretty fun. But yeah, my record's actually been pretty positive. I played against stuff like Azamina, Fiendsmith, Snake Eye, and stuff like that. I've done really well. Played against Tenpai. Okay, I actually did lose a match against Tenpai, but that was completely on me because I'm like completely brain rotted and I like didn't pop the thing that I should have when I needed to. I think this deck is actually like pretty damn strong right now compared to what a lot of people might think. At least until, like, Malice comes out, because once Malice comes out, Runick kind of, like, takes a back seat. Because you don't really want to banish your opponent's Malice stuff, because it's going to trigger it and stuff, and they're going to get a bunch of extension, compared to, say, they only had their normal summon, then you freeze and curse it, and now they got, like, full combo, you know? I don't want to waste too much more time. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start. Starting off, we have 3 copies of Live Twin Leela. 1 copy, sorry, of Live Twin Kiss Kill. 1 copy of Kiss Kill Frost, and 1 copy of Sunny Snitch. Let me go ahead and try to get slightly better focused now that they're on the mat. So, as you can see, I've opted to play the smaller Live Twin package. Back in, like, cash format or something like that, the bigger package might have actually been a lot better. But I think right now the big thing keeping me from playing a bigger twin package, other than the fact that I didn't really like it anyway during Snake Eyes format when I played this deck, or old Snake Eyes format, I guess. The big thing is Dominus Impulse. Impulse is like a super strong card against this deck if you don't really have too much to go off of. And if you're opening a bunch of twins and that's like one of your only plays and you neural summon it and get Impulsed, I mean, that kind of sucks. And it's especially bad late game because if you get Impulsed while they have a trap engrave like an Imperm or another Impulse or something like that, they're going to pop your twin, which is really bad. And so you want to mostly go through them on your first turn, and then if you see one as a follow-up card later, such as like a Leela when you have like a Hugin or like any sort of way to get a Runick on board, and you can link them off into a Leela after you got your board broken, that's okay. But other than that, you don't want to play like too many in my opinion, and this is like basically the bare minimum. I mean, Leela's the best one to open, of course, and Sunny Snitch is like a 4th copy of it. I actually don't even like Sunny Snitch that much because it plays really hard into Droll. So you kind of like only have it just so it's like kind of technically a 4th copy of Leela. And also the life point thing can be pretty funny at times, though. A lot of people think that's like the win con of the deck, but you're actually genuinely trying to mill out your opponent. Like, and it's not even like a sense of like, oh, I'm gonna play a bunch of stun cards and mill out my opponent, even though you are sitting on like Nightmare Griffin and stuff. It's like, a lot of the time with this deck, your opponent is going to scoop before you can deck them out. They're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's go ahead and get into the next game so I don't get cheesed by like a red resonator or something stupid like that. So most of the time, you're actually winning by your opponent scooping, which is pretty funny. Yeah, very small twin package. I don't really think you need too much more than this. Let's go ahead and go into the sprites. Another very minimal package here, honestly. 3 copies of Spright Blue, 1 copy of Spright Jet, 1 copy of Red, 1 copy of Carrot, and 1 copy of Starter. Similarly to the twins, you don't like always want to brick on these is a big thing. Blue is an amazing card to start off with if you open it like alongside a Runick card or with a twin or something like that. But after the first turn, I think Joshua Schmidt puts this like really well. The very first turn, you really want to see your sprites, which is why you max out on like 3 blue and stuff. But after turn 1, they are like almost completely useless. But other than like a very niche scenario where you have like a twin, a Runick, and then you top deck red and your opponent has like an SP or something, and you can go like normal a twin, special red, and then now you can activate your Runick and then like use the red to negate the SP. I don't know. Like, other than those very niche scenarios, oh my god, there's 10 viewers. Hi, everybody, how's it going? Other than those scenarios, you don't really want to see your sprites outside of your very first turn. It's just not super optimal, and a lot of the time they end up being discard fodder. They do come up here and there when it does come to link climbing into like your Unchained Abomination, sometimes Nightmare Griffin, SP, but other than that, it's mostly just like first turn you want to extend past some hand traps, because this deck eats hand traps like candy. It really could not care less about hand traps as opposed to board breakers, but then after that, they're kind of useless, and you'd rather see a bunch of other stuff, which is why getting into the Runick package, we are playing a very hefty one. We, of course, have the 2 fountain. Let's go ahead and try to fit everything on here at once if I can. We have 3 copies of Tip, 3 copies of Freezing Curse, 3 copies of Flashing Fire, 3 copies of Runick Destruction, 3 copies of Runick Slumber, and 2 copies of Runick Dispelling, for a grand total of, it's like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17 Runick names. Oh yeah, Abao is going to be, like, super nice. I really love Abao. I'll probably just replace Unchained Abomination with it. But yeah, this is my Runick package. It's on the heftier side. We are playing the 2 Dispelling and stuff. I feel like Dispelling is actually, like, a super underrated card. Because before it was like, oh yeah, it's like the worst Runick name. It's the one that you want to usually grab off Tip to summon your Hugin. And while that is the case sometimes, Dispelling is actually really good into something that this deck kind of struggles with at times, and that's Fuwalos. So, a lot of the time, you can go, like, activate a Runick or normal summon a Twin, and your opponent's going to chain Fuwalos, and you can just get hit with, like, an ungodly amount of draws just for doing your basic combo, because the Twins bare minimum require, like, 3 extra deck summons, plus the main deck summon, so that's, like, 4 draws already. But what a lot of people don't know is that Dispelling works when your opponent draws cards, not just searches. And so, basically, if your opponent goes Fuwalos, this is just an additional name you can activate on your turn to trigger your Fountain, which is really good, because that means you're banishing 2, you're discarding a random card from your opponent's hand, which could be either a hand trap that they couldn't use at the time, I don't know, so it's like a Nibiru, for example, or you could hit a very important engine piece, and it is only 1 card out of the multiple they will be drawing most likely off of Fuwalos, if you don't just, like, sit on a conservative Runick package instead of, like, your big end board, but it's still better than nothing. And again, it's more ways to mill the opponent's deck and trigger your Fountain on your turn, which is really big. So that's why I bumped it up to 2. I was going to play, I think it was like a second copy of Kiss Kill or a second Dispelling, and then I realized, oh yeah, Dispelling works on Fuwalos. So I was like, okay, I think it's guaranteed. I would like to go for the second Dispelling. And I actually do really enjoy having this many quick plays. You really, really need to see these, especially mid-game. And also, one of the biggest things about this deck as a whole, if you can survive, like, the first 1 or 2 turns, depending on the matchups, like 2 turns, maybe 3 turns for something like Snake Eyes or Yubel, 1 turn for a lower power deck, like, I don't know, fucking Sword Soul or something like that, then you basically just take control of the game. But the problem is that if you don't see, like, at least 1 or 2 Runicks, you're going to struggle in that regard, especially against those faster paced matchups. And so you really want to see as many Runicks as possible. And the later game you go, the easier and faster you'll be seeing your Runicks. So just go, boom, like, draw 3, Tip, Freezing, Flashing, or something like that late game. Because those are, like, the only things left in your deck after you've gone through all your engine. Which is another reason why we play so minimal of, like, our actual, like, board building engine. Excuse me. And so you want to just, like, draw into all of your Runicks instead of, like, any sort of bricks. And then, finally, this is a Runick build, and everyone on Twitter harassed me to play board breakers instead of hand traps. So we are playing 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent, and 3 copies of Evenly. Droplet, Send, Kiss, Kill, Tip, and Sunny Snitch instantly ascend. Oh yeah. Oh, it feels so good. But yeah, as I was about to mention, board breakers were easily the best thing that Twitter could have ever harassed me into doing, because holy shit, do these feel really, really good. I mean, I was already citing these cards, to be fair, but I was playing, like, hand traps instead, and it just felt really bad. But I really, really do love the board breakers in the deck. I feel like they fit a very good function, especially against boards that don't really have an Omni to deal with the Evenly, or if you also open Droplet. I think the only problem I have with board breakers as a whole is that you can end up drawing, like, board breakers, and yeah, you can break apart your opponent's board, but without, like, a discard for Fountain, and a Runick to activate to get into that, and a Runick to activate after that, you can end up not really putting up much of a board after breaking your opponent's board, and a lot of decks nowadays can just kill you on the crackback, which is really scary. So those are the situations where you do want to see like your twins or like your Sprite starter or something like that, where you can at least end on something. But it does kind of feel really bad in case like you don't see certain hands going second. But these cards just are still super fucking fantastic. I mean, I play against like Voiceless, for example. I just go evenly, chain droplet, send the evenly. And then main phase 2, I can just do whatever I want. Also, something cool that someone told me on Twitter that I didn't realize you could even do. You can literally, since it's like your first battle phase, just go straight into battle phase, going second, activate a Runick card, and then summon Jerry. Have Jerry punch into something, and then like bait out a disruption, and pop a card, maybe. And then you can just safely evenly after that. Talents is like an awkward card to me. I think it's like the only one of these that I don't like, because evenly is evenly, and it can also be discard fodder. Droplet you can use going first or second. Talents is one of the only cards that I don't actually enjoy too much, because a lot of the time it just ends up doing nothing. Impulse is really strong against this deck. Imperm's really strong against this deck. A lot of the time people aren't even maining Atchu to Snake Eyes and Tenpai and stuff like that right now. And also, you want to do a lot of stuff during the draw phase if you can, like your Runick Tip to search, your summon to search Fountain off the Hugin. You want to do all of that during your draw phase to bypass Droll and Veiler, but then they just, if they do have Ash, they can Ash you then, and it's like, well, now my Talents is dead, and I don't really have any game plan. So, I mean, it's like I just said on Twitter, Talents is either the most ban-worthy card of all time, or it's like the worst card in your hand, and there's no in-between ever. But I'm still going to play it for now, because I still feel like it is pretty solid when it does go off. Because Talents into 2 more Runick cards, nothing beats that. But moving on to the extra deck, with the Twin package, we have 2 copies of Evil Twin Kiss Kill, 2 copies of Leela, 1 copy of Trouble Sunny, and the honorary Evil Twin is Muckraker from the Underworld. We love our Cracker Lady. Ugh, God, I just really wish that the quality was, like, slightly better on this, but anyways, this is a pretty standard lineup. You want 2 and 2 so that you have backups that you can go into later on. Trouble Sunny doesn't always go on the end board. It usually comes on the follow-up, unless you, like, completely don't see any sort of Sprite plays. So then you'll make it on your first turn, but most of the time it comes up later. And the second effect to send a card in the field is really good at outing problematic cards that you can't out. And then Muckraker is one of the best cards in the extra deck. She can revive your Kiss Kill, she can revive your Trouble Sunny, she can revive Nightmare Griffin, Unchained Abomination, anything like that that you could really want. And also the protection is a lot better than people think. A lot of people forget she has that protection, so they'll try to, like, kill her or something because she has low attack, and you just go tribute to protect, and if you can keep her alive, especially with, like, your Runicks as well, like Runick Slumber to protect her, or prevent something to attack, then you can, like, summon back something again on the next turn. Also, one thing I have to keep remembering is that she discards for effect. I kept accidentally discarding for cost. I don't think it ever mattered. I think she only ever got impermed once. But a lot of the time, I keep forgetting. She discards for effect, so she can trigger Dark Worlds and shit. So that's actually pretty good. If it does get hand trapped, then I can at least keep the card in hand. So if I was trying to, like, discard a Runick or something, I don't have to. But a lot of the time, the end board is, like, Muckraker plus a Kiss Kill, and then, like, an IP if you can get it as well. I won't be doing any, like, combo tutorial or anything, because a lot of the time you just look at your hand and go, yeah, I can work with this. And, like, there's very few, like, set combos, you know? So I won't be going over anything like that. For the Sprite stuff, insanely minimal. 1 Sprint, 1 Gigantic. Sprint literally only ever comes up for the triple body combo, where you just turn, like, a blue, a Hugin, and then another Sprite named usually Jet, into, like, Sprint. Sprint dumps Leela, and then you overlay the last 2 for Gigantic, and then Gigantic detached to summon your Kiss Kill Frost, and that's literally it. Other than that, Sprint never comes up. Gigantic comes up for that combo, mostly to access a twin in general. If you see one twin get hand-trapped, go for a Runick, and then go into the Gigantic, and then get the twin that you didn't have. Other than that, you can also use it to go for a more minimal end board, I've noticed. If you have, like, no access to Fountain, for example, I feel like going for a board of, like, Gigantic, Red or Carrot, and then IP is better than just sitting on your twins, because your twins only do so much, you know? They get, like, a pop, maybe a draw if you're lucky, but without Fountain, it just doesn't really matter, because you can't really utilize any sort of, like, really cool Runick plays with your Fountain off the stuff that you draw, and you can't back up your single pop with that. So I'd much rather, if I get my Hugin hit with like an Ash or an Imperm, and I can only make a Gigantic to continue my turn, I would much rather go Gigantic, summon Blue, Blue add Jet, Special Jet, Jet add Starter, Starter Special Red or Carrot, and then link the Blue and the Jet off into an IP, so that we have guaranteed 3 disruptions, plus a couple more cards in hand usually, for the follow-up turn. Then I would rather go for the Twins. If you're on more main deck Twins, would you cut Sprint, given you don't need it for accessing them very much? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question, honestly. I just don't really know too much of what I'd put in this place, other than like a third Hugin, maybe. Maybe even like a, I don't know, maybe Sleipnir would be funny. But I just don't really... I have like a love-hate relationship with Sprint. I feel like it is necessary, because, like, I just think playing more main deck Twins doesn't really work out very well, like I was mentioning earlier. I suppose if you were on more main deck ones, you wouldn't have to go for Sprint, but, I don't know. I just feel like it filled its role really well, because there are a lot of times, even when you are playing a lot of Twins, if you don't see them, you do want to get access to them, but you could also just go for that board that I just mentioned with, like, the blue and stuff like that, so, yeah, I suppose, yeah. If you really wanted to, you can just cut Sprint if you're playing more, main deck Twins. If you're playing, like, the, 3, 6, 8, yeah, the 8 twin line, something like that. Yeah, I think the horse is pretty funny. Like, I haven't really tested too much with it in, like, any of my Runick builds, but I think the horse is pretty funny. Especially if your opponent's on, like, Dragon Link or something, because you can go Dispada, the horse is here. Alright. Moving on to the Runics, insanely simple, 2 Hugin, 1 Jerry. Hugin gets your Fountain, also sometimes saves you from Duster if I guess you get hand trapped and you can't make your twins. I think that's one of the only disadvantages this deck has over, like, 90% of other Runick decks, is that you usually have your extra monster zone full, so you can't, like, do a super fast Lightning Storm or Duster save with a Runick card, and then, like, trigger your Fountain to protect your Fountain. If that happens, I mean, you kind of just get boned. Like, that's actually one of the reasons why I lost the Tenpai matchup. I made a super big board game 1, and I was like, okay, literally the only card he has that can kill me here is Lightning Storm, because I have Destruction for his Sangan summoning. And then he goes Lightning Storm, and then activates Sangan summoning. I'm like, okay. But yeah, and then other than that, Jerry's Jerry, super cool, helps break boards, also grabs your Fountain back, and is a generic body that you can use to go into a twin late game. And then onto, like, the random, assorted, basic stuff, we have IP, we have SP, the Gaze, they're here. Yeah, this is, like, part of your main end board. Funnily enough, though, you're actually not really going IP into SP most of the time. SP is usually, like, a follow-up card half the time. IP is typically on your big end board, going into Nightmare Griffin. Yeah, Griffin is IP's one true life partner in this deck. Basically, you're just going to be going... If you have, like, IP plus a twin, and then, like, Muckraker is also really good to have in this situation, you can just go IP plus the twin or the Muckraker, or, like, the extra twin in the Muckraker that you, the twin that you haven't used in the graveyard yet. So you'll typically go Kiss Kill, summon Leela, pop a card, and then you'll go IP with the Kiss Kill into the Griffin. Then you can go Leela, summon to get the draw off the Kiss Kill, and then Griffin kind of just insta-wins against 90% of decks, I'm not gonna lie. Unless they had a specific board breaker, almost every time I put a Griffin on board, my opponent's lost, because, I mean, what are they gonna do to it, you know? I mean, they can go for, like, Anima, and then get hit with a Flashing Fire or a Freezing Curse. They can go for, like, I guess they could go for a White Woman if they can somehow go for, like, 4 bodies on their board to use the Griffin. And then, other than that, they have to, like, make their own link with, like, multiple arrows to get effects going, and then at that point they still have to simultaneously out the Griffin, while also dealing with your Runick cards, while also dealing with your twins, and there's just way too much for them to keep track of. And then it's already in frame, so I might as well show the final link monster is Unchained Abomination. This is what I put in Typhon's slot after I cut Typhon. I do love Typhon as a card, but I feel like right now, especially with cards like Baron and Savage and Apo and all that gone, it just doesn't really do very much. It feels like you're just already in a losing situation if you do put the Typhon on board. I'll finally admit that, because this isn't a great format for it. Abomination can work really well with Leela, Flashing, and Destruction, because it says whenever a card on the field gets popped, you can pop another card. So, especially if your opponent's playing something like Snake Eye, they'll go like Ash, search Poplar, special Poplar, Poplar search. Then you can go like Flashing, pop the Poplar, and then Abomination, pop the Ash. And yeah, they saw the original Sinful Spoils with the Poplar, but what if you have a Destruction as well? Just saying. Like, it can be really, really good. You can just combo off on your opponent so hard. Not to mention, if they're only playing the one original Sinful Spoils, you can banish it a lot of the time. You could actually have a really good matchup against a lot of decks like Yubel or Snake Eye, Fire King, Azamina, whatever. Because they're playing a lot of 1-ofs, and you can just go, like, 4 bare minimum every turn, just going, like, tip slumber, like, on your turn. And then on the opponent's turn, you can banish, like, what, let's see, 2 off Dispelling, 3 off Freezing, 2 off Flashing, 3 off... You can banish a lot of cards on your opponent's turn, is what I'm trying to say, which is really funny. So yeah, you can use Abomination for a lot of really cool ways like that, but a lot of the time it's just... it's a really good way to help push for game if you are actually going for an OTK, because sometimes if your opponent's in such a bad spot, they're just going to keep passing turn. They're going to be like, oh, they're just going to keep activating Runick cards. We'll see. Maybe I'll draw something. And so you can just, like... They'll be like, oh, they're not going to attack me, and then you can just go into Abomination, big 3k body... plus your twins, that especially if you have a Trouble Sunny left, you can tag out with the twins for, like, what is it, like 55 damage or something like that, which is crazy. And then Abomination on top of that is also game, which is really cool. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I actually didn't think we'd get this many people to come watch the stream. Like, I looked over randomly and there was like 10 concurrent viewers or whatever. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming out. This was really fun, and I actually really want to do this more often, even not just for, like, this deck, but like for other deck profiles potentially. I think doing it live is pretty fun because then you get like input from chat. And again, I do really like the look of the chat thing right here under my webcam. I think that looks really, really sick. I'm gonna definitely keep that up for streams in general from now on. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as it helps put this video and the channel into the YouTube recommended. And if our content were similar like it, like the rest of my deck profiles, streams, etc., stuff like that, and some live duels up with this deck, I'm going to get definitely a few more before I end up swapping off the deck. Then perhaps consider subscribing and turning on notifications if you haven't already, because support your channel more than anything else, and it's absolutely free. Also, going to directly getting some awesome TCG merchandise in the process. Check out Tapio cards and link down below. Use code ROY5 for 5% off purchase at checkout, and it's for me financially. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon to see what you can get from my $1 and $5 tiers. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.